now look at one of the most influential periods in the development of the English-speaking theater, Elizabethan England. It has been said that if the most significant playwright of this period, and perhaps of all time, William Shakespeare, hadn't written a word, that Elizabethan England would still be the most prolific and influential period of playwriting. Elizabethan England is so called because of the monarch who ruled England during this period, Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth reigned over England from 1558 to 1603. During her powerful rule, many things happened in the social, political, and artistic areas of her kingdom. Perhaps the most significant artistic development during her reign is the rise of Elizabethan drama. This is amazing when one considers the fact that the performance of plays inside the London city limits, with one unique exception, was forbidden during her reign. To understand the magnificence of Elizabethan drama, we will first need to consider what influences during the Elizabethan period made such drama flourish. We will also look at the significant playwrights of the Elizabethan period, including William Shakespeare, and see why their plays have had such lasting power. So what were the conditions of Elizabethan England that made this advancement in drama possible? First, one would need to give credit to a significant technological advance. That is the invention of the modern printing press, nearly a century earlier. By the time Elizabeth came to power, the printing press was making reading available to masses of people. By the 16th century, reading was a popular pastime, making much of the population of England literate. This would explain the highly literate plays that were written during this period. Another influence on Elizabethan England was the Italian Renaissance. In Italy, from the late 14th century up to the end of Elizabeth's reign, the Italians were experiencing a cultural and artistic boom, which would eventually be adopted by the rest of Europe. The arts were emerging as a popular influence on the Italian culture. Both high and low art dominated. It was during this period in Italy that the commedia dell'arte became popular. By the time Elizabeth came into power, England was adopting this appreciation of the arts. Perhaps the most significant figure of respect from the Italian Renaissance that influenced Elizabethan drama was the ancient Roman tragic playwright Seneca. Seneca's plays were written in Latin and admired in Italy during the Renaissance. Since Latin was the language of law in England, it was taught to the young schoolboys. Seneca's plays were taught as a part of the lessons in Latin. Schoolboys would read Seneca's plays and translate them into English. Nearly every young man in Elizabethan England who was educated knew the plays of Seneca, and the structure of his plays were used by the playwrights of England. This education would come to create a prominent group of playwrights known as the University Wits. We'll discuss this group of playwrights in a later section. Seneca was also influential in that the 5-act structure of his plays were adopted by Elizabethan playwrights almost without exception. Another significant development in Elizabethan England was the shift of the seats of learning from the churches of England to the universities. During the medieval period, which preceded Elizabeth's reign, all teaching occurred in the churches and was supervised by the heads of the churches. The monasteries were still teaching the boys during Elizabeth's reign, but the truly influential seats of learning occurred in the newly formed universities. As a result of this shift, we see a move from the spiritual point of view to more secular themes. Where God was seen as the center of the universe in the preceding period, in the era dominated by the Italian Renaissance, man was seen as the center of the universe. We see a much more secular point of view in the plays of this period, as opposed to the religious themes which dominated the medieval drama. So it was this lively period which experienced a shift in technological, social, and political viewpoints which encouraged the growth of some of the finest drama ever created. This is not to say that the theater artists of this period did not face obstacles. There were still political influences which stood in the way of drama's development. The religious Puritans, who yielded much of the power during this period, felt that theater was immoral, and used their power to stop or stifle the development of theater at every turn. Theater could not be performed within the city limits of London by order of law. In fact, the Puritans eventually did stop the performances of theater in England. The most symbolic gesture of this dubious accomplishment occurred when the Puritans closed down Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in 1642, nearly 26 years after Shakespeare's death.